Hello and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina Ukrainian poetry. Today we will talk about the poem dedicated to the names of Ukrainian months and it was written by a very noticeable and wonderful woman whose name is Marijka Підгірянка and who dedicated almost all her life to education of young children within the school system. Marijka Підгірянка is a pseudonym of Maria Omelyanivna Leonard, who was born in Ukraine before the First World War, and her life was connected with the period in Ukraine when we didn't have our own independence. And in her early poetry and in her poetry which was written during the First World War, the idea of Ukrainian independence and the idea of suffering of a common people in bad times, in the times of instability, are dominating. But she was the most famous because of her children's poetry. It's very interesting that she didn't have a chance to get a formal school education because her father cannot afford sending her to school. He sent only her brothers, only boys to school, and she had to learn everything at home, mostly by herself reading. And this home education was so good that afterwards she was able to enter the university and to receive the pedagogical diploma from the Lviv University. After it, she starts teaching, but the First World War not only separates her from her husband, who was taken on the frontier, but also forces her to relocate from her native place to Czechoslovakia, and within these territories, the Ukrainian communities and the part of Ukraine was also included to this lands. So there she started to organize and to teach in Ukrainian-speaking schools. No wonder that being a teacher, she decides to write a poetry for her children, for children she taught, and for her own children. She had 4 children of her own. And let's read one of such poems, and that poem will definitely help us to learn Ukrainian months. Ой місяць січень кличе мороза, морозить лиця, щипає носа. А місяць лютий вітрами дує, на водах з льоду мости будує. Березень місяць льоди поломить, весняну пісню річка задзвонить. Квітами квітень всіх привітає, усі садочки порозквітає. Гей, травень прийде у дні чудові, простелить всюди трави шовкові. А місяць червень луги покосить, червоним соком ягідки зросить. А місяць липень гарячим літом обсипле липи пахучим цвітом. А місяць серпень серпом задзвонить, достиглий колос додолу склонить. Вересень місяць добре газдує, овоч смачненький дітям дарує. А місяць жовтень мряку розвіє, в лісах, в садочках лист пожовтіє. А листопад той жалю немає, з дерев останнє листя зриває. А місяць грудень на радість людям сніжком присипле замерзле груддя. I hope you liked this poem and it reminded you that Ukrainian months, the names of Ukrainian months are not very common within the Slavic community, and they describe the nature which is out of there, and they describe some happenings in the fields or some coldness, warmness, or harvesting during the time which this or that month occupies within the calendar year. Going back to Maria Leonard, she had a life as a teacher and she had a quiet life, but her poetry wasn't published during her lifetime because they were too Ukrainian, and the Soviet power which would be established, they of course cannot tolerate it, and The only thing why she stayed at home was a terrible accident when the horse hit her, and she became disabled, and she was staying in bed all the time because of her disability. And that's the only thing why the Soviet repressive system didn't send her to any camps where she would probably die. The first collection of her poetry will be published after her death, after 1963. She lived a long life and she lived till 82 years old. But the first really big collection of her poetry was published only in 2006 by the efforts of one of her children, who is now emigrated and lives in Australia. That's the story for today. Sometimes we need to rediscover our poets who were long silenced, and we need to go back to read their poetry, to share it with the world. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comment box your opinion. Don't forget about your likes, subscribe for the channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon, because exactly this way I can create more of such videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon. Goodbye for now.